Welcome to the OSHA Compliance webinar, How to Master the Regulations Even If You Have No Experience. I'm glad you've come today because you will discover some interesting stuff here about OSHA compliance. Compliance is a process, and you're going to learn the steps that are involved, the 4 steps that are involved in complying with the OSHA regulations. You're going to learn about some obstacles that you have to overcome in order to make compliance happen at your facility. And you're going to learn how to eliminate the fear of compliance failure. So, who am I to be talking about OSHA compliance? Well, my name is Ron Harvey. I've been in the environmental service industry for 35 years now as a hazardous waste chemist. I've personally handled somewhere around 400,000 drums of hazardous waste. I've responded to hundreds of chemical releases and spills of every kind. I've cleaned up several hundred illegal drug labs. And yes, that is a picture of me mucking, as we call it. Some old paint needed to be dumped into drums, and that wasn't a very fun job. You know, when I went to college at the University of Lowell in Massachusetts, I started for a degree in chemical engineering. Well, it failed. I wound up having a very, very hard time with calculus, and I remember actually the day that the dean of the College of Engineering came to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Son, you're not going to be an engineer." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And so I was degraded, as they call it, to the College of Pure and Applied Science, where I got my degree in chemistry. Well, what else do I do? I've had milk goats twice in my life now. I've had a herd of between 25 and 100 goats, and a good portion of them were always milk goats. And it is a long story about how I got into that, but I'll tell you what, I just love it. It's one of my favorite things. That's my retirement plan, as a matter of fact, is to have a goat dairy. Okay, so let's get into the meat of this now that you know a little bit about me. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I've been in thousands of businesses over my years of going out into these companies and picking up their waste and cleaning up their spills and talking to them about this and that, doing inventories, lots of different things. And every time I would go into these businesses, I would be walking through the facility and I would just be able to look around and I would see some were doing a good job at compliance, some were doing a bad job of compliance, and some were just plain ugly. It's no other real nice way to put that. And so I wanted to help. I've come to the conclusion over the years that disposing of people's waste is helpful, but really I can be of more help to the clients as in terms of just helping them with their compliance with the regulations. But I want to tell you a quick story first. One day, a few years ago, I got a dent in my door, long story. And so I brought it to a little local shop, paint and body shop, and I said, "Hey guys, I need you to fix this." The owner comes out, he looks at it, gives me a price. I said, "Okay, great, let's do it." And as we're walking back in, he said, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I help companies deal with their OSHA, EPA, and DOT compliance." And the first words out of his mouth were this: "The thing I fear the most is OSHA walking in that door." And I was absolutely floored by that. Of all the things for a small business owner to be concerned about, the thing he feared the most was OSHA. And I thought, damn, it doesn't need to be like that. And so I decided that day to do something about this. And that's what I've been working on. So I have a couple of questions for you. Are you responsible for OSHA compliance at your workplace? Is that what you do? And of course, Do you have other primary responsibilities like production, operations, human resource management, whatever? Because that is a condition I see in many people, that they are juggling different responsibilities, and OSHA compliance just happens to be one of them. And in respect to your OSHA compliance, I mean, are you struggling with those responsibilities? Just I want you to ask yourself that. I mean, and you got to be honest too. And hopefully, since you've come to this webinar, you have already come to the conclusion that I got to get some things straight regarding OSHA. And so I just consider those questions. Okay. Now, I want to tell you what you really need to do in terms of the process that it takes to comply with the regulations. It's really not that difficult in certain respects and difficult in others. But the first thing you got to do is you need to recognize which activities at your facility are regulated. Just looking around and saying, okay, that looks good, everything's okay over there, you may not be actually picking up on the fact that a particular activity is regulated, and when it's regulated, therefore, there are requirements. So the next thing you have to do is to determine which regulations actually apply to that regulated activity. Because in order to know how to comply with a given regulation, you need to know where it is. I mean, what is it? What does it tell you to do? So that's the second step you need to do. The third step is to identify the legal requirements in that regulation. And easier said than done. That's all I'm going to say about that. And then, of course, once you know what needs to be done, you need to implement those requirements. And that's it. Those are the steps you need to take in order to be in compliance with the OSHA regulations. So one thing I want to do is to make available to you these slides so that you can review them later if you desire. At the bottom of the page here, there's a very long link, and I had meant to make that webinar slides text right there a link as well. It looks like it didn't work. Oh well. But anyways, you've got the link right there, so you can get these slides later and review them again. So I want to go into a little more depth now on the 4 steps. Recognize your regulated activities. So you've got to be able to look at the different type of operations in your facility with the eye of a regulator, I guess, and you've got to be able to start recognizing what activities are regulated, like if your people are doing any tank or vault entries, if they're set up to do emergency response, like for chemical spills and that kind of thing. If they do machinery maintenance, certain types of machinery maintenance are regulated by OSHA. You also have to consider what kind of chemicals are in the workplace. That's a big regulatory issue in terms of OSHA. Production processes, maintenance work, storage, transportation of hazardous materials and chemicals can invoke some different OSHA regulations. So also, what kind of equipment is in use? That's one of the big ones, because equipment is in industry. Everybody uses equipment. Forklifts in particular, a big issue. Hoists, slings, mechanical presses, even hand tools are regulated to some degree. And of course, you've got employee exposure to hazards, but it isn't just chemicals we're talking about. High noise levels are considered an exposure. Chemical exposure, obviously everybody knows about that. Working at heights is also considered an exposure to the risk of falling. And electrical hazards, well, everybody knows about getting shocked by electricity, and that is definitely an exposure for some of your employees. The second step, determine the applicable regulations. So the first thing you got to do is look through the OSHA regulations. Easier said than done. I repeat myself, but that's probably one of the most difficult parts here. Title 29 of the Code of Regulations, Part 1910, is the general rules for the rules for general industry, and those are the OSHA regulations that apply to a vast number of industries in America. So that's where they are. Okay, we'll get into that a little more. So once you find the rule that applies to, say, forklifts, okay? And by the way, they kind of hide it because they don't call forklifts. They call them powered industrial trucks. Pretty good bureaucrat speak there. So once you so the next step is to check the applicability of a specific rule, because in some cases it might apply to you, in some cases it might not. And of course, if you see that it does apply, you can now look for exceptions to the rules. And of course, when it comes to the legal stuff, lots of exceptions are made. So that's the first thing you do. Look for applicability to your operations, and then look for exceptions to that rule. And of course, at that point, you're going to have to make the decision. Are you subject to that rule or not? That's the deciding point. Okay, great. Once you decide you're subject to a specific regulation, okay, you're in. Now you got to deal with it. And I wanted to mention also, specific operations might actually involve multiple regulations. And I got an example here. If you're welding on stainless steel at a height of 6 feet, you are subject to 3 different regulations simultaneously. So if you're looking at a particular operation and you see, oh, this is regulated here, don't necessarily quit there, because there might be other regulations that that apply at the same time. Okay, next, oh gosh, we've got to identify the regulatory requirements. Fine, this is how you do it. You got to read the regulation. Easier said than done. It's not easy, because the regulations that are put out by the federal government and generally adopted by the state governments is written in a language that I call regulese. And if you have no experience with reading regulese from the Code of Federal Regulations, and they call it code for a reason, if you're not familiar with how to do that, you've got a little bit of a task on your hand. And that's one of the things that is a primary difficulty for people that aren't very experienced when it comes to the regulations. So great. Okay, let's say you figure out how to read the regulations. Now you need to identify the compliance points. What does the regulation tell you to do? All right, and of course, along that same line are equipment specifications, exposure levels for different hazards, like for instance the noise. If it's below a certain level, it's okay. If it's above a certain level, you're entering regulated territory. Let's see, a lot of regulations require that you document inspections of equipment or operations. There's required signage for some regulations. Employee training, of course, a very great number of the regulations require that your employees be trained in how to safely do a particular kind of work. And of course, just about all of them have some kind of record keeping that have to go along with it. So now that you know what the requirements are for a different regulation, you have to implement those requirements. Now, one of the first things you need to understand, of course, is that there's this thing called affected employees, and you need to find out who they are. For instance, with the forklifts, you can say that, okay, you don't have to train everybody in your facility how to drive a forklift. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you need to determine which employees do drive the forklifts, and they have to be trained and equipped and so on, because they are affected by the hazards associated with the use of the forklift. If there are exposures that your employees are subject to, you need to measure them somehow, or there's different ways to estimate them sometimes as well. Okay, implementation, training the employees. Okay, that's a real big one because, first off, when you train your employees, hopefully they understand better the hazards that they're dealing with, and they're better able to protect themselves. And of course, one of the primary things that employees need are personal protective equipment, and it is required that the employer provide that equipment for them. One more thing here. Ensure the employees follow the rules. That's actually quite frequently stated in the regulations, that the employer must ensure that the employees actually do what you tell them to do. That can be an interesting exercise sometimes. You need to ensure that the equipment meets specifications. You need to ensure that the documents, that the inspections are documented, the training is documented. Lots of requirements when it comes to implementing the regulations. Okay, time for a quick quiz. Let's see how many of you guys can grasp this. I set it up as a quiz, but it's really just kind of a trick question. How many times do the OSHA General Industry Regulations use the term "the employer shall" or "the employer must ensure"? Now, those are the compliance requirements. So the compliance points that I mentioned earlier. When it says the employer shall, that means if you don't, you're in violation of the regulation. Or the employer must ensure, if you don't, you're in violation. So those are really important terms to pick up in the regulations. So is it around 100 times that the general industry regulations use that term? Is it about 500 times? More than 1,000? Or is it's got to be at least 1,000,000 times? Well, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know how it is. In actuality, the OSHA regulations for general industry say the employer shall, or the employer must ensure, 1,527 times. Now, that is a lot of requirements for the employers. So just keep that in mind. 1,527 times the regulations tell you this is what you got to do. And if you don't, it might not be good. So now that you've learned the step-by-step process that you can use to comply with the OSHA regulations, and those are, again, recognize your regulated activities, determine the applicable regulation, identify the regulatory requirements for that regulation, and implement the requirements. Those are the steps. Now, of course, sometimes there are things that get in the way. And I put right at the top of that the language of the regulations. Like I said, Regulis is not an easy language to understand. If you have little background or experience with OSHA regulations and safety and all that stuff, that can be a real difficulty for you. If you have other priorities, now that's, to me, another really huge thing, because most of the people that are out there with OSHA responsibilities have other priorities as well, and there's quite a bit of competition between the two. On the fourth one here is you have no foundation or guidance. What I mean here is that you may have been put into the position of being the safety manager, okay? and you say, okay, great, I'm the safety manager now. But there's nothing for you to build on. There's no established written programs. There's no training records. I mean, you might be handed a blank slate sometimes when it comes to your new responsibilities. And sometimes the person that was in charge of those is gone, or in other words, you don't have anybody else that can kind of show you the ropes. So you're just kind of thrown out there, and you don't have any help to turn to at all. So what can happen if you don't manage to get your compliance in order? And I do apologize. I meant to make this text a little bigger, and it looks like I kind of forgot to do that. But so what can happen? You go ahead and you take some actions in terms of getting your facility into compliance, but you're really still not sure how to get it done. What I've seen frequently in different businesses is that they take the seat of the pants compliance method, which is basically just kind of status quo. Everything's okay until everything hits the fan. Another problem that can crop up when it comes to compliance is it takes the back seat. Everybody just kind of says, all right, everything looks good. Well, business as usual. Let's get the job done. And compliance winds up just getting put farther and farther back on the bus, so to speak. Now, OSHA compliance enforcement is something that you need to be aware of. OSHA has a compliance budget, which is in the tens of millions of dollars a year that they spend enforcing the regulations. And there are two primary things that they use for that. There are national enforcement initiatives. Every year they have a new one. Let's say one year it was forklifts, the year it was confined spaces. In this particular year, if I remember correctly, it's fall protection is a big deal. So that is something that everybody in terms of the OSHA regulators are looking for. And they do the same on the state level, and they can actually have different enforcement activities or focuses based on the different industries or industrial activities in that state. So OSHA is out there looking to enforce compliance. So how do they do that? They conduct inspections, okay? Now, employee complaints are a large percentage of the causes of inspections. In particular, if you go to OSHA's main page on their website, osha.gov, okay, and you will see right on their front page a pretty prominent section that says, file a complaint here. And so they're actually encouraging employees to file complaints. Now, okay, I can understand that to a degree, but on the other hand, I can well imagine that there's been some abuse of that particular system. But that is one of the doors that OSHA will use to come in and perform an inspection at your facility. Now, another thing I wanted to make you aware of is that OSHA fines back in 2016 were increased up to 80%. They hadn't increased their fines for a number of years, and a couple of years ago, they were given the green light to increase their fines significantly. And they have, according to what I've seen, they have been using that new authorization. Soft targets. What do I mean by that? The OSHA inspectors, they pretty much know who's on top of the game, but they also know who is basically out of compliance, and they will target what I call these soft targets, because they come in and they know that they're going to find multiple violations at those facilities, and it makes their job easy. I mean, come on, these are people, they don't want to have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig to finally find something wrong at a particular facility. If they come in and they look at a couple of things and they say, okay, well, everything looks good here, see you later, they're going to go look for a soft target. Now, other things that will bring this trouble on, okay? Employee injuries. If you have serious injuries or even a fatality at your facility, you can pretty much expect OSHA to be paying attention to you in short order. And these guys, by the way, I've talked to some of them. They read the newspapers. If they see a big story that night when they get home about a facility that had some chemical reaction or fire or whatever, and a whole bunch of employees wind up going to the hospital for exposure or something like that, they might be kind of dropping by and seeing what happened, of course. I mean, that's their job. And so the employee injuries is a very significant, again, cause of people coming in. Okay, another thing to be aware of is EMR increases. EMR is your experience modification rate. It's used for calculating insurance rates when it comes to that. So when you have employees that get injured, your EMR goes up. Now that increases your what you pay for your insurance at your business, but also I've seen several cases recently, and this is becoming more and more popular, where a vendor is kicked off of a contract because their EMR exceeds certain levels. In particular, there's a company that is an electrical utility company, and they had a company that provided them with a particular service. And they had an injury over the course of a year or two, and their EMR rate went up. And when the utility company got wind of that, they said, "You can't work for us anymore." I mean, they literally just kicked them out, said, "You can't work with us anymore until you get your EMR rate back down." That can be a really big deal, obviously. Personal injury lawsuits, well, yeah, we all know about that. That if an employee is hurt at work and they think that you are responsible as the employer, and they could go out and find themselves a personal injury lawyer, and that can cause some problem as well. Now, if you have workers that get injured, another potential consequence of that is that your worker compensation costs and your rates will go up, and that can get pretty bad, because the cost for workers' compensation is high enough already, and about the last thing you want is for it to go any higher. So now I want to talk about how to beat the fear of compliance failure, because when you fail to comply with the regulations, it causes all sorts of problems potentially. So how do you deal with that? How can you overcome that failure? Okay, the first thing you got to do is you got to know the rules of the game. And the rules of the game are the regulations. You need to know what the regulations tell you to do. Another thing is that you need to know what your employees are up to, because dang, they can find all sorts of creative ways to get stuff done, and sometimes that would lead to potential issues in terms of compliance. And of course, the best way to beat the fear of compliance failure is to know where to get help. If you don't have anybody at work that knows the regulations, and you're new at this and you're trying to get this figured out, you're going to need help because you got a pretty steep learning curve ahead of you. And without help, it's going to be a tough haul. So let me make this a little more real for you and show you how you can get the results that you need. For the past 4 months or so, I've been doing nothing but working to perfect this process of compliance with the regulations. And the results of what I've put together have been nothing short of astounding. I've created a training course for you and to help you overcome the burdens of OSHA compliance. This is something that can really help you out. It's called the Safety Manager's Facility Compliance Course. The Safety Manager's Facility Compliance Course is going to do a couple of things for you. It's going to remove that fear of compliance failure. It's going to give you confidence that even if the inspectors do show up, that you have done your job to make your workplace safer for your employees. And another thing it's going to be able to do is to make you look good to your boss, because chances are that when you've been put into that position, your boss kind of crossed his fingers and said, okay, I hope he can pull that off. I hope she can get this done for us. And they're putting some faith in you. And of course, if you can bring your company into compliance with the OSHA regulations, you're gonna look good. And that is something I want to see. The Safety Manager's Facility Compliance course is potentially going to save your company some money, because when you get the compliance issues nailed down, that tends to make the workplace more safe, less risky for your employees. Now, another thing is that when you get out there and you start implementing these safety measures, employee morale is generally going to increase, because they're going to see that the company actually cares. That they're going to fix something that has been just dangling out there for years, and everybody's complained about it. Nothing ever got done, and you finally get out there and say, "Hey, well, look, this needs to be fixed." Because it's a compliance issue, okay? And so, great, your employees are actually going to pick up on that at some point. And once you get this this course under your belt, you're going to have knowledge that can be transferred to the next person that's going to be put in charge of safety at your facility. This isn't just going to evaporate when you leave, because all of the plans and the training and the records and the documents and the training materials are all going to be in place. And that is a real bonus to the owners and bosses in the company, because they're not going to have this seesaw effect of, oh, great, the old compliance person quit. Now what do? We start again? No. They're going to be able to take that, what you've built, and be off to a good running start. It's also going to translate the regulations into plain English for you. This course is really all about simplifying the compliance process, because it's too complex. It doesn't need to be this hard. And you're also going to get supporting documents, compliance cheat sheets for each regulation that explain the applicability, the potential exceptions, and of course, if you're subject to the regulation, it's going to go ahead and just put everything right in place, check, check, check down the line. This is what you got to do. I've had the opportunity to send this course to someone I know. And I'm going to have to call him Mr. X at this point because he's actually a sales manager for a company that sells online employee training. And so he is well versed in this industry and he knows good online training when he sees it. So I sent it to him. And he wrote back to me. This was unsolicited, and it really made me feel good because it was quite exciting to read his thoughts. And this is what he said: "I'm still going through it, but I really like it so far. It has a really personal touch, and it doesn't feel inorganic or impersonal. It sort of feels like you're in an actual classroom, and I enjoy your personal nuances throughout. I also think it's great that you have classes that are followed up by all of the support documentation that coincides with the training. I'm going through your walking and working surface class right now, but I have to start a demo in 5 minutes. And I just wanted to tell you that I think it's awesome so far, and we'll get back to you with more feedback when I have my next demo cancel. It is honestly mind-boggling that you've put this together all by yourself. You've done a great job." And I'll tell you what, that made me feel pretty good because this is the first type of course that I've done like this. And like I said, I've spent months now. I actually put together an entire course, and then after letting a couple of people watch it, I got some feedback, and I just tore the whole thing apart and rebuilt it. So I've really focused on making this course productive for you. What I've done here is I've put together an outline of the curriculum for the Safety Manager's Facility Compliance course. And it will show you every single item that we're going to cover. And the curriculum is, if I remember correctly, I think it's 6 or 7 pages long because it covers every general industry regulation under OSHA with a couple of exceptions, particularly commercial diving, underwater diving. I didn't cover that course, okay? Please, if you guys are doing underwater diving, forgive me. I just didn't have the time to cover that one. Now, the regular retail price of the Safety Manager's Facility Compliance course is $497. And quite honestly, that's a real good price for the volume of information that I'm going to be giving you guys. But our first-in students are going to receive access to this entire course for only $97. That, I'm sorry, personally, that is a really, really great deal. Yes, if you act quickly, you can get full access to this course for only $97. That's 80% off the retail value of my course. And this bonus is available only to the first 27 students who enroll. And I've got several already, so it's starting to fill up. 80% off of the retail value is what I'm offering you guys because you have stuck with it so far to go through this whole webinar. The first-in value package, okay, I mean, this is it, guys. This is what you're going to get. 80% price reduction. You're going to get instant access. All the course lessons are downloadable in the video, in audio, and the slide decks for each course are available as downloads. You're going to get access to a private LinkedIn group where you can ask me questions at any time. I will be in there just about every day looking to discuss things with folks, and I'm going to come up with stories, regulatory changes, just trying to keep you folks engaged and moving forward in your compliance efforts. I'm also going to have open office hours by phone once a week. I'm going to be on the phone for about an hour, and you can sign into that call, and you will be able to ask me any question you want about the OSHA regulations at your facility. If you click that link at the bottom, that's the Safety Manager's Facility Compliance Course Special Offer that is available now. Sign up soon. So if you miss this now, the price goes up to $197 for the next 73 students. And then it's going to go up to the full $497 price. So when was the last time you paid just $97 for a university level course? Okay, the information that these courses conveys is really pretty significant, and I'm making these courses loaded with information for you guys, but I'm also reducing the regulatory language to plain English, just telling you guys what you need to do. The focus of the course is on compliance, okay? The course, a particular regulation is going to say, okay, great, you have to do A, B, C, and D. And that's exactly what I spell out for you. A means you got to do this, B means that, and C and D, and so that you can have a clear path forward in compliance with OSHA. The course curriculum is broken up into 5 segments. The first one is an introduction to the course, and that even includes a whole lesson on how to read the regulations, the code of regulations. And I really enjoyed that because that's one of the most difficult parts that people have with these regulations. I mean, I've seen it just like this, where the owner of the company comes to the safety person and says, "Oh, we got to put together this course, okay? Or pardon me, we've got to put together this compliance effort for a particular operation, whatever it is." And they say, "Okay, here it is. It's in 29 CFR 1910.147." Okay, and they hand you the book or the regulation. They printed it out for you, and after you read the first page, you're just like, what in the world are these people talking about? That's how bad the regulations are in terms of conveying the requirements clearly. It's written in a legal mumbo jumbo, really, that is very, very difficult for a lot of people to understand. Okay, the second part of the course curriculum are universally applicable regulations, and I think there's 5 of them in there that almost every single business out there are going to be subject to, and I wanted to get those right up front for you. The third section of the course are the most frequently cited rules, because this is what OSHA will do. If they come into your facility, they're going to say, "Okay, great, I'm here, let's take a look at your stuff." And they're going to ask to see this plan, and they're going to ask to see these training records, and they're going to ask, and they've got a list that are the ones that people most frequently screw up on. And that's what they're going to ask for first. And that once they get those 4 or 5 things done, if you've got those nailed, okay, they're generally going to say, "Okay, great, looks like you're doing a good job." And they're going to walk back out the door and say, "Thank you very much for your time." But if you flub 3 or 4 out of those 4 or 5 different things that they ask for, they're going to know that they've got some more work to do on you. And it can get pretty bad from there. If they really start digging, oh boy. The fourth segment of the course are the most hazardous workplace operations. I wanted to really focus on those specifically because I've been involved in some of those particularly hazardous operations, and they are things that you want to make sure your employees are doing correctly. And then the fifth segment are just all the OSHA rules in order, one at a time. And Another good thing that I hadn't mentioned before, I almost forgot, is that if you, the way I've got it set up is that when you begin a particular a lesson, the first thing I discuss is the applicability of that regulation. If that rule doesn't apply to you, and you just say, oh, well, I don't do, hot flammable liquid dipping operations, for instance, okay? You just say, okay, great, that doesn't apply to me. And you get to skip that section, that lesson, because I don't want you reading a whole bunch of stuff that is completely inapplicable to you, unless, of course, you really want to know it. And then you can go through that lesson. But I've made it so that you can skip these segments and not have to spend a whole lot of time reading stuff or listening to me talk about stuff that doesn't apply. And so that's it. Click down below here and you will get access to all of this for $97. Now, that's not all I do. I'm not just giving you a course and saying, hey guys, go for it, okay? Because I want to back up your efforts. And that's why I've got the private LinkedIn group. When you get in there, you'll be able to interact with the other people that are there. You'll be able to ask questions of them. You'll be able to network. And you'll also be able to post questions specifically to me. And I will get them answered for you because that's what this is all about. I'm going to have the open office phone calls. Email support is also going to be available if you have any questions. And along down the line, I also want to start introducing the concept of accountability partners, because that really is a valuable exercise when it comes to somebody that's taken on a really big task like this. You want to have somebody that you're going to be accountable to every week and say, okay, great, I'm going to get this one down next week. And after the end of that week, you and your accountability partners get back together and say, well, did you get it? And you say, yeah, I got it. Or, well, almost. Or, but that's a really important tool, I believe, in helping you get the job done. So if you miss this now, the price is going to go up to $197 for the next 73 students. The numbering here is a secret. I'm not going to tell you why I chose 73. But go ahead and click here, get this really special offer now. And of course, I wanted to tell you that you got a 30-day risk-free guarantee. If for any reason you aren't satisfied with this amazing course, we'll refund your full purchase price. 30 days, you can have your money back. And I really don't anticipate a whole lot of people to do this, because when you see the value of what I'm putting into this course, I don't think you're going to be too interested in bailing out, to be honest, because this is made to help you get this really important job done right. So you have nothing to lose, and you have a lot to gain by grabbing this opportunity now for $97. And I'm really going to stick my neck out here because you haven't seen what I'm offering. I can't give you free access to the course, but what I have done is I've put together 2 free sections of this course. They're the actual course, the actual sections right out of my course, and I'm going to give you access to those for free so that you can get a good taste. And I've set them up as free mini courses in my school. The first one is the Injury and Illness Prevention mini course. Okay, and all I talk about there is the Injury and Illness Prevention regulations, which are the 29 CFR 1904, and the brand new Walking Working Surface mini course. This regulation came out, the Walking Working Surface, however they say it, a new rule came out less than a year ago, if I remember correctly. So this is a brand new thing, and it is a huge set of regulations. If you take that course, you better be ready to be exposed to a lot of information, because it covers so many different aspects of almost every company has some issues that are involving the working surface. So compliance with the OSHA regulations can reduce business risk. Compliance can keep you safe from the regulatory enforcers. Compliance can make your workplace safer for your employees. My recommendation, honestly, guys, I mean, you know, this is what I want. All right? I want you to take the Safety Manager's Facility Compliance course. I want you to learn the rules. I want you to get the support you need, okay? And the way to do that is to click here, sign up for this special deal. I've put a lot of work into giving you a way to get your OSHA compliance under control. And I'm not joking about this. This is a really serious effort on my part, because I know you need some really serious help. Click here, sign up. Thank you for watching this webinar. It went a little longer than I wanted, but that's because maybe I'm just a little too passionate about this. I don't know, maybe not. Anyways, you got questions? There's my email address. Send me an email, ask me whatever questions you want. If you really want, give me a phone call. I mean, I'm making myself available to you guys to get this this really important issue of OSHA compliance nailed down. So that's about it. Thank you again for watching. I really hope that you can see the value that I'm offering here. So please go ahead and download the PDF of the slides here, and go ahead, get started, and see how much this will improve OSHA compliance at your facility. This is Ron Harvey with Echelon Environmental, signing off. Thank you. Bye.